Let's move on to partnerships and your philosophy on partnerships. So what is your approach to partnerships? What is your approach for SkyTeam sort of loyalty, earn and burn possibilities? Within your members, the airlines, there are also different approaches. Like Delta Airlines is very big in co-branded cards in the US. We were interviewing Air France, the KLM last year, Ben Lipsy. He was talking about the trends in Europe and saying that he'd love to have a better or bigger co-branded partnership opportunity, but compared to the US, Europe is nowhere there yet. So what are your views and what's your philosophy on that?
Well, so you have packed a lot of questions in this space. In terms of partnerships, I would say the first thing I would say is that SkyTeam carries a very strong DNA that comes from airlines like KLM and Delta, because KLM and Northwest were the first two airlines creating an extremely deeply integrated alliance in the 90s. And that DNA has remained, and that DNA has translated into a current joint venture, the transatlantic joint venture, with France KLM, Delta and Virgin Atlantic, which is the only joint venture of its kind in the industry that is profit-based and not revenue-based. So the first notion is that we carry this important DNA in our philosophy. The second is that, so think about code sharing, right? You try to maintain the traffic within the alliance. But of course, the alliance can cater for 90% probably of the, even 95% of the needs, but not for 100%. And so we need to allow a degree of flexibility to the members in case they need to cooperate with a member of a competing alliance. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing that we can mention. Specifically on loyalty, I mentioned before or maybe I didn't mention before, but I wanted to mention our focus areas. So we have three focus areas: the accrual, the redemption, and the recognitions. For us, loyalty and the projects that we have done in loyalty as SkyTeam, so the tools that we have created for the airlines to use are linked to these three areas: accrual, redemption, and recognition. So looking ahead, we are, these years that the budgets are going to be a little bit better, we will be most likely investing in bettering the experience in these two areas, specifically when it comes to accruals, in making accruals more seamless. Today there is a coexistence, for example, of revenue-based as distance-based. And from a technology perspective, this is not really easy to bridge. So we need to do something in order to enable a better coexistence of airlines that have chosen revenue-based and airlines that have chosen distance-based. The other piece that we are doing is looking at miles or points as a currency, because that would enable the flyers to redeem, to have more options for redemption, including upgrade. And so that is another important piece of the puzzle.
And what about partnerships outside of the airline industry? Are you looking in expanding there as well?
Absolutely. So there is one of the things that have happened in SkyTeam in the last few months. We have created an innovation department. So there is a team of people, a small team, but very strong, very motivated, that is looking at innovation specifically. And that's an area where partnership comes handy. Because, for example, we have developed a partnership with Plug and Play, the incubator in California, and that will help us in adopting a solution for knowledge sharing, which is evolutionary. Another area where partnership come in handy is sustainability. So we have partnered with the World Economic Forum on the reaching 10% of SAF, the World Climate Foundation, 10% of SAF by 2030. We are partnering with the IAWMA, the International Association of Waste Management in Aviation. We want to partner with another association that we just discovered. So that's another area where we can do a lot of things.
Thank you very much, Mauro, for your insights on the loyalty industry, but also on the airline industry. Now to personal questions. At Global Loyalty Organization, it has become a tradition that we ask our interviewees 2 personal questions.
Yeah.
And so the first question is, if you had no limit on budget, you had a magic wand, and you could invent any feature, what would it be?
Well, it would be something to solve the biggest challenge that airlines today have in the customer experience space, and that is managing irregular operations. So I think the industry doesn't do a good enough job on irregular operations and the management of disruptions. So the whole field of service correction and service recovery is very close to my heart. So I would invest in that space.
And is there actually already technology which would help to do that? Is that something you've been looking into?
There is technology. Is it enough to do whatever we want? I don't know. But simply, AI is one of the ML is one of the areas where, in fact, AI can play a role on this, but also simply people, call centers. Sometimes you just want to talk to someone, and you need to empower this someone. So empowerment, another very important topic. Empower the front line to solve those problems. We are not doing a good enough job.
Actually, that brings me to a question, which is, through AI and digitalization, etc., and also throughout COVID, there were a lot of layoffs, and especially like customer-facing roles have been cut.
Yeah.
And listening to what you're saying, you think it's very, very important to actually have the interaction, like the human interaction with the customer.
In my opinion, it's hugely important. The first important thing is to solve the problem, of course, but I find that human beings or human interaction can be an important ingredient of that problem solving. Understand there is a cost element there, of course, but it's an important piece. I always mention the service recovery paradox. If something happens, something bad happens, like flight cancellation, if you managed as an airline to recover that passenger, offering a credible alternative nicely, quickly, and effortlessly, the loyalty of this person will become higher than the loyalty of a person who has not suffered any disruption.
Absolutely.
So we need to do a better job in that area.
Absolutely, great to hear. Great to hear. To my last question, so if you were talking to your younger self, starting out in the aviation industry, and having the experience you have now, and you were able to give yourself some advice, what would that be? My
only advice would be, first of all, so when I started in aviation January 1st, 1990, I was coming from the automotive industry, and I thought, yeah, great, aviation, but I was underestimating the complexity, and I was underestimating greatly the fact that at the time, but even now, the profitability of the industry is, at the time it was very poor, this time is better, but still not high enough. So that's to be aware of where are you going, where you're going. Because it's a very fascinating industry, with low turnover, by the way, but it's a challenging industry. The second advice would be learn, keep on learning, permanent learning, because the more you learn, the more you can understand how to navigate the industry, and frankly, how to bring benefit to the industry, how to serve the industry.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that with our members. Mauro, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights.
Thanks a lot to you.
We hope to catch you again next year, maybe at the World Aviation Festival.
With pleasure.
And thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.